find out if you're ready for love. Here's your marvelous host, Nikki, Leigh.
Hello, and welcome to Ready for Love Radio. This is your host and love coach, Nikki, Leigh. Today, I've got a special treat for the listeners. If you were listening, and you should have been, the last hour, you listened to Ray and Syd with Dare to Be Better. Now, I convinced them to stick around and to do my show. So, you got an hour and a half of Ray and Syd tonight, folks. So, Ray and Syd, it's good to have you with me.
Hello.
How you doing? I'm still here.
I know. Ray, I haven't had you on the show in a while, and I've got your cohort with me tonight. How's the new show going? For people that haven't caught the new show yet, how's it going?
So far so good. It's a half-hour format. We kind of followed the Barry Eva logic here, and a little bit of less is more, because if you give us 60 minutes, we do enough damage in 30. Syd could do 30 by herself standing on her head, and, we knew that from the very, very get-go when I met her. But it's going great. The feedback has been fantastic. It's been all unsolicited, which has been the magic part of it, and Syd could tell you, too.
It's going great. People seem to genuinely like it. We get great emails, great feedback, and I think that Ray and I just kind of fit each other like a glove. We just sort of tick along, and he's very patient with me. I've said before, he's like the play-by-play, and I'm very much the color commentator. We do well together.
That's cool. Well, I know I've always enjoyed when I have Ray on the show, and when he lets me guest on his Ray Powers Hour. So, I understand that. I was listening to your show last week, and y'all were talking about a topic that I've covered quite a few times on here. And I said, I think we need to talk about that some more. And I had all kinds of things that I was saying to the screen while y'all were talking, and I said, we could talk about that while they're with me. And I
hope you're going to say what you were saying to the screen directly to us.
Maybe. Maybe.
This stuff is printable.
Well, we have a little bit more leeway about the conversation on my show. Because we're after that, family hour on my show.
Put the kitties to bed.
And the program director gives me a little bit of leeway about what we talk about on my show. So.
Yeah, he's a pretty cool guy.
He is. He's such a sweetie. But don't tell anybody, and it'll go to his head. So,
Ruins his reputation, too.
He's a good friend of mine. So for listeners that missed your show, which they shouldn't do, they shouldn't miss yours or mine. What else is Thursday night for, right? And I will mention that they can catch y'all on New Visions Radio, either audio or video. You can do either one. So they're also, you can catch the video on newvisionsradio.com. They have the video there, or you can catch it on Ray and Syd channel on YouTube. Okay, so I've done all the shameless promo for you guys, which I'm sure y'all are going to do at the end also. And I'll have the link on the show page. But last week, y'all were talking about open relationships, and that's something that I've covered on here, because one of my things is that as a love and relationship coach, I want people to understand that, years and years ago, the thought was, and I hope we're getting away from this as people are kind of coming more into their own and expressing their individuality more, that there's not just one set type of relationship. We hear all these things about gender and all of this sort of thing, but there also isn't just one set relationship. You know when way back in the day, well, we're all kind of the same age. So when we were all growing up, the basic idea was, you have the husband and the wife and 2.5 kids, okay? That was the thing, and the white picket fence. That's not really how it is anymore. There's more and more people that may not get married, or they may not get married until later. They may be single parents. There's just a whole lot more variety, shall we say, in relationships and living circumstances and all this sort of thing. And actually, y'all were talking about two-parent households compared to one-parent households, mothers and fathers, all this sort of thing back a few weeks ago. So what do y'all think about the different sorts of relationship options that people have today?
Well, it is 2021, and like you said, the dynamic has changed. I think all this stuff was going on prior to this. It's just that, like you said, it wasn't socially acceptable. So you would have to go to an after-hours club if you wanted a so-called swing, or you wanted to wife swap, or, your wife wanted to get a little experimental with the girl next door or something. You just didn't tell your neighbors. And you certainly wouldn't put it on, well, you didn't have digital media back then, but you had the gossip line, which was worse.
True.
Nowadays, I guess listen, far be it from me to judge anybody on anything, but, do I like the fact that it's this out in the open? Maybe a happy medium would be a recipe for, I don't know, good taste. I think maybe it's just too much now. But,
I don't think it needs to be quite. I don't think it needs to be like in your face kind of thing. But I like the fact that there's information to let people know it's a possibility.
Sure.
And how to do it properly, because you can really screw it up by doing it wrong, and be incredibly unhappy if you do it wrong. But I like that people are being educated that if what you're doing feels wrong and you're unhappy, you do have other options. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so what, in your opinion, is when you say doing it right, doing it properly?
Well, it depends. It depends on what you're looking for. Because you can get into situations and think that, well, like if you want to be in an open relationship, okay, you can dive into that head first without preparing you and your partner first, and end up incredibly unhappy because you went off kind of half-assed and just weren't ready for it. It's the kind of thing you don't dive in without kind of setting the ground rules and agreeing on how you're going to do it. Does that make more sense?
Mm-hmm. And so what you're saying is that's how you prepare or correctly do it, is by that preparing.
That's one of the steps that you have to do. Yeah, you've got to communicate. You don't just say we're going to do this and start without preparing both of you, and you don't just say, okay, we're going to do it, and then just kind of wing it. There, some things you can wing in life, and some things you can't. And you don't just assume your intentions, and you don't assume the intentions of other people. You've got to communicate. Because it's just like dating, period. I mean, you never, okay, you should never just enter into any kind of dating situation without open, honest communication. But, I mean, we all know people that have. And how many times have any of us done that kind of thing, and you don't have open communication with the other person? That's disastrous.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole part of what they call now ethical non-monogamy. You know, it's one of the, I guess, buzzwords.
Right.
But the ethical, obviously, is the, that's the focal point. There is you're speaking and you're communicating and you're maybe you're not going back home and go, hey, guess what I did point to point. But
Yeah.
understood, here's where I'll be if you need me. If there's an emergency, call me. I'll come home.
Right.
So
Well, and
here's the question,
bringing,
Nikki. I'd love to hear your feedback on this. So when we go and let's say I go work for an employer, okay? I'm in corporate, whatever. And corporate, they do frown upon me putting my energies, my talents, or working for a competitor or someone in the industry other than them. Because with any
competition.
With any gig, the outlook at least is where you put your energy, where you put your focus is what grows. It's what's going to become stronger, and that's how come they don't want you straddling the fence per se, right? So if we're looking at a relationship, and I'm not judging and I'm not saying if it's right, wrong, or otherwise, I want to ask the question. So if we're looking at a relationship here and the energy is split, it's split. Some of the energy is put towards partner A, energy is put towards partner B, and if there's three of you, obviously. So
right.
how does that relationship bloom? I mean, it's very hard to get a career to bloom and to become and to really become a master at something if I am straddling that fence.
Well, see, I've always worked multiple jobs. Always.
Right. So I hear what you're saying. You've worked several jobs before. Is that what you just said to me?
Well, at the same time.
Sure. But when you work several jobs, are your jobs in the same industry? Meaning, like, let's say you're a talk show host here. You're not necessarily a talk show host someplace else competing with yourself, or are you?
No, but I've also had other ones that complement what I do here.
Okay, so compliments. All right.
Yeah. So they feed off each other.
Okay.
So it's things that do work in conjunction with one another. So one actually does feed the other, and they do benefit one another. Okay. Just as an example.
I guess what Syd's saying is, if you're working for her, she's going to ask for an NDA.
Right. Well,
and Nikki, you're
that's,
a free agent. You're
more.
Clearly,
that's more the reason I don't want somebody working at the same job. Like when I worked at Domino's, I didn't want my drivers also working for Papa John's because they know my customer base, and I don't want them giving my proprietary information.
Correct.
That's more my concern.
That's just why and again, I don't want any listeners thinking that I am stepping one way or the other or damning anyone. I just really am interested because I will be up front for me, even in my career, because I have also been someone, I'll work a ton of careers. I've done a lot of things in my life, but I am very, if someone's going to come work for me, Ray is absolutely right. You're working with me, for me, and we're heading down a trail together, a path. It's like he and I doing this show together. I wouldn't, as I know he would not. I would not be pleased if I found out that he had another talk show host on the side and he's doing a show similar to what we're doing. I wouldn't be pleased with that because I feel like I want his energy here. I want him focused with me building this. And I want his loyalty, just as I will give that to him.
Right.
Do you see? I'm just saying, then the question comes in, if we're putting this towards a relationship, if just hypothetically, if Ray and I were in a relationship and I want all his attention with me, but then I'm like, hey, okay, you can go get yourself another co-host. I'm all right with that. And he now is going to divide his attention with me. So how do we bloom if his attention is now separated and he's giving his time and efforts to somebody else?
Okay, let's look at another scenario, okay?
Okay.
Do you have a best friend?
Ray.
Just a best friend?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you asking me?
Yes.
Yes. I do have a best friend.
Okay. Do you have other close friends?
Sure.
Okay. Do you do different things with these friends? And do they bring out different parts of your personality?
Yes, but none of them are my talk show host. Do you see what I'm saying?
Forget the talk show host thing for a minute.
Okay.
Do you feel differently when you're with different friends?
Sure.
Okay. Do those individual friendships belittle or make each friendship? Do you feel any different about them because you have multiple friendships?
Do I feel any different, meaning in value?
Yeah.
Is that what you're asking?
Do you feel less toward your best friend because you have the other close friends?
No.
Okay. It's sort of similar to that. Now I'm not saying you need 10 partners, okay? But you can, and this isn't right for everybody, okay? But there are some people this kind of relationship works for, okay?
Okay.
That can and do find that having more than one partner, and the thing, people tend to think this is all about sex, and for some people it can be, okay? But it can also be about finding out more about themselves, okay? Because with different partners, you can find out a lot more about yourself, about different interests, different views that you have, different things you want to pursue, and you may even just find different things that you're interested in that you never even realized.
Okay, so I don't want to dominate because I know poor Ray is like, Sydney, you need to share the mic.
No, I'm just sitting back. It's nice to sit back and actually enjoy the show once in a while. Now, you know what? I'm thinking, and I'm just, again, devil's advocate. I took this stance on our show, too. You might have the perfect spouse, let's just say. And maybe, physically she's not into one or two things that you really love, and you're going to respect her boundary because you don't want to, force them into something they don't want to do. Now, party B might be into that, and party A might say, your wife goes, hey, if she'll do it, great. I don't want to do it. If that's what it takes to keep you happy, And obviously, it's a very, very delicate thing with trust and balance because you're still going home to your spouse, and partner B has to realize that you're going home to your spouse ultimately. So partner B, there are other sticky wickets there where partner B can become attached, and it has to be a difficult thing, I can imagine, to keep all these things straight and to compartmentalize, especially for the woman. I don't mean to typify, but obviously guys are a little better at it historically, at compartmentalizing. So I just look at it as, maybe if you can't get salmon at this place, this place is a vegan restaurant, and you love to be a vegan 6 days a week. But that seventh day, you just got to, sink your teeth into a burger.
Okay, so here's devil's advocate. So it's one thing to talk about having a best friend and a girlfriend and another girlfriend, but I'm not sharing sex, that inner intimacy with them. And this thing of not just sex, because sex is just sex with many people, but there's a thing like loving someone and being in love are two different things. Having sex and making love are two different things, at least in my eyes. So when I share myself and I make love to my partner, for me personally to think that okay, maybe he's not going to go make love to this other person, but he sure is sharing something that I would hope was only that thing that he shared with me. Because there's a lot of things in this world that majority of things are not just for my partner, right? There's many things we all have to share with everybody else. And so that one thing of intimacy, love making, and only with that one partner, and if he's going to go share it with someone else, in my eyes, it doesn't make our relationship that special. He's sharing it someplace else too.
And clearly this is why it's not for everybody.
That's correct.
And really it's not a mainstream thing.
Right.
But you know what, though? I think it's becoming more mainstream. I think I was incorrect, by the way, Nikki. On our interview, I've listened to it back, and I don't think it is an older person thing. Man, it is. It doesn't matter your age. They are doing it from 16 on up, you know?
Yeah, I heard you say that.
It's very common.
I heard you say that, and I think I know it's all age groups are doing it. Because I know quite a few people. And I guarantee you, anybody listening, a lot more people have friends doing it that don't know. They have no idea.
Yeah, it's very common now. It's very interesting. And I do want to point on that for a second because I was just talking to a friend who has her niece that's stepping this direction. And often, not always, but often, sorry, I have a little cough, just a second. So often, but not always, when individuals, again, just my point of view, when individuals start reaching to find something someplace else, for a woman, but I think also for a man, they're missing something, right? And I agree, one person can't give you everything. So if we're talking about making love, however, that one thing that is so specific and you give it to one person, but, you know, if he wants to go have salmon with someone else, he could go have salmon with someone else without having sex or making love.
Well, I was using that as an example. That was my euphemism. But you're saying I can go physically have salmon with somebody else. It's got to be at the restaurant. Big cruise, though.
Okay, but Ray, keep your feet on the floor doing it. Keep your feet on the floor.
That's so funny.
Like I said, keep your feet on the floor and keep your shirt on.
And your pants. Don't care about your shirt. Keep your pants on.
No, wait a second. You can take your shirt off, but keep your pants on.
Yeah, that's correct. Keep your whatever with your shirt.
like I Love Lucy, right? 1 foot on the floor.
No, that's so funny. But seriously, there are, well, and like I said, we all have our own thoughts and feelings about that. I completely understand where you're coming from and respect that. And like I said, big part of all of that is in the talking between each of the partners before they decide to do anything. That's all got to be worked out between each set of partners. You know, the initial couple and then anybody that they would consider being involved with. That's why you talk about everything thoroughly and honestly before you decide to do anything. That's why that was the first thing I said. Because you've got to be sure what you want to do and the ground rules that you have in place. And you stick to the ground rules. You absolutely have to stick to the ground rules.
So you being, you know, having your talk show and talking about these types of subjects, is it common for, let's say, somebody in an open relationship where one of the partners is a little more gung-ho on it and the other one is not as interested? Is it common that one becomes jealous, right? And the third question, is it common that maybe the partners, the two that started out doing it, you know, wanting to bring the third in, let's just, for example, that someone starts falling more in love with the new arrival?
I think across the board it is. I mean, of course, every situation is going to be different. But from anybody that I've talked to, you're going to have that to some degree. And actually, sometimes it's not the person you would expect. Just saying, because sometimes
becomes too attached or not attached.
Either one. I know of situations where the person that thought they were going to be more attached or thought they were going to be jealous wasn't the one that it happened with. So there's been situations where, like I said, that the husband thought he was going to be more attached, and it ended up being the wife. So I mean, it's unpredictable what's going to happen sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always, a chance. There's got to be an element of that danger where, this person is going to develop feelings. But I can go to a coffee shop every morning, and the same girl serves me. Maybe we start getting friendly and flirting, and there's a chance I could always fall for her. I mean, that's a bit of a wild stretch, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, and there's also the situation where you can enter into this kind of thing and think it's just going to be casual and you get more serious, or you can think it's going to be serious and it not. I mean, there's a million variables, just like any kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But there's also a thing called, and I may describe this wrong, and if I do, Ray, correct me, compersion. Isn't that the right way to say that? Where if the one partner starts into a new relationship with somebody, they actually share that excitement with their original partner. So it's not that. Okay, so say they have a date with the person outside their basic relationship. Okay,
right.
And how you have all those new relationship feelings, the excitement and all of that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
right.
Make sure that you were okay. I'm not used to you being that quiet. Okay. So so you've got all those things. All right, Ray. All right, so you still there? Okay. So you've got all those feelings and excitement. Okay, and you take that excitement home and you share that excitement with your partner. Okay, so you're sharing that, and your partner is getting to reap the benefits of that excitement, so to speak, okay? So you're actually sharing that with your original partner, and that can be done in all kinds of different ways. And they're getting the benefits of their partner's excitement and that sort of thing. And like I said, that can go very well. So I'll just let your imagination.
Well, I guess you have like a 50-50 right there, right? Because either it's going to go very well or it's not going to go well at all.
Well, if your partner is on board with this and excited that you're happy and it should go well. I mean, if they're not being honest with you and they don't really want to do this, then that's different. But if they're on board and they were being honest with you, then it should be a really fun night.
Well, so how often do you think it is that one partner may be investing themselves into this open relationship simply because they feel like if they don't invest themselves, they'll lose the other partner? Do you think that happens often?
I don't know. I've had a lot of conversations about that with other people in this field. I don't know. What do you think, Ray?
I mean, I think that it could happen. I think if you have somebody, I mean, I don't recommend going into that under duress. Absolutely not.
No, I don't either.
I think, compersion's a good word, but I wouldn't use that here in Syd's case. But, I mean, I think I've talked to people, and they said, yeah, well, I want it to be happy at all costs. And maybe they went a little further than they were anticipating or, thought they Like, this wasn't in the original game plan, but all right, I'll go along with it. And maybe there's reluctance. And, maybe it's not there. I'd rather be just with you. And I think a lot of people, if, they're being honest, maybe they would confess that. And it is just purely for their spouse's pleasure or their partner's pleasure. But I guess it really depends on how you feel at the end of it. Do you feel fulfilled? Do you feel I'm really, really, like the look on his or her face just really, really, makes my day? Or I don't know, I feel like this is kind of wrong. If it's the latter, then you need to talk about it and you need to re-examine it.
Right. Well, that's it. Keep the lines of communication open. Well, and if one partner has someone and the other person is still looking, that can be rough, in between. Now, if both partners have somebody, that obviously would help, because you've both got somebody. But then everybody can also, be friends and spend time together. So that can make a difference. It just all depends on the dynamics with the situation. Because, there's all different ways that you can do it. So, there's a lot to talk about.
I think there's also varying degrees of what you agree on as far as, like, let's say you and I are together, Nikki, and you love the museum. And the museum does nothing for me. We agree that once a month, we'll go to the museum because you really, really enjoy it. And I can, it's not like someone's sticking me with hot pins while I'm at the museum. But, it's like, all right, we could deal with this. And you really, really get something out of it. And I go, this is fine. We're both going to the snack bar. We both get to see the same stuff. And then on the way home, we'll go to my favorite restaurant or something. It's all give and take, and you have to be honest. That's the main thing, is it? If there's no communication, your relationship is doomed anyway,
Right.
Just completely independent of any of this extraneous stuff.
Very true. Awesome. Makes good sense.
Okay.
Well, like I said, sounds logical to me. But yeah, there's so many compromises. Like I said, there's so many ways to customize things so that you can accommodate what each person wants. As long as you agree that you're both open to the idea, no pun intended there, then you can customize it to make each person happy. Say, this is what I need, and then the other person says, okay, I'm okay with that. So, you can, there's no, you have to do whatever. But it's, I don't know, it's an interesting concept. And if people want to do it, that's an option. If they don't want to, that's fine too. So.
Right. Yeah.
But
well, clearly, I think it's been going on for years and years. It's just that it's much more out in the open now,
Right.
And Nikki was talking about that.
People talk about it now. Yeah. But there's a lot of things that people talk about now that have been going on for centuries that nobody talked about. Well, few people talked about. So,
it was taboo.
Yeah. Well, and we find it in the history books if you dig for it, but it wasn't mainstream. So, that's interesting. So, but what was there was some that but yeah, y'all were talking about two-parent families that y'all were talking about?
Yeah, that was
what was y'all? Right. What was y'all's take on that? That was an interesting show, too. I enjoyed that.
Well, I stand by what I said. I'll double down and basically give my opinion that a child is going to be exponentially more successful and happy if his mother and father, or his or her mother and father, are present in their life. Now, as Sydney mentioned, her parents are divorced, as were mine. So they can't always be in the same household. But, does your dad come and visit? Does he hold to his promises? Does your mom come to visit? Do you have step parents? I really think you need that male. I'm going to call it a patriarchy. I mean, I know I'm going to catch some heat for that. You might catch some flack too for this, but
yeah, well,
and a mom who basically, I think the dynamic of a mom and dad, it's irreplaceable. Yeah, two men can certainly raise a child. Two women can do it. They've done it. Single parents can do it. They do Herculean jobs. But, all things equal, it would just make things, I think, just exponentially easier on the child if they had both.
Yeah.
What?
However, I will say this, I don't know that it, in my opinion, that it needs to be a mother and a father. I think it's the power is and the brilliance is the male and the female, right? Regardless if it is father, mother, or whatever. I think because I do know for myself and my girls, my father, their granddad, right? My father was a huge importance in my girls' life because their father really isn't present. So I do think that's fantastic if you can have both, but I don't think it's a must-have. I think it's really more male-female.
Yeah, I think it's great if it can be the mother and the father. This may get me in trouble. If the mother and the father provide a healthy situation when they're with the child, but I definitely agree that they need a male and female influence in their life. Because they need both of those influences.
Yeah, they bring something. They bring something to the table, and a father or a male raises children differently than a mother or a female, and we behave differently with children, we nurture differently with children, and we protect differently. And I think those values, those things that a male and female bring to the table are vital to a child. And I think if you can get it through a grandparent, through an actual father, through an actual mother, or even a next-door neighbor, whomever it is, or, many times, like my daughter, she's experiencing it with a teacher at school. He's just so graciously kind of picked up that role, and it's paying off for her. But it doesn't need to be her, doesn't need to be a blood relative. It's this teacher that she'll remember forever.
Yeah. Well, they need to know both genders. They need to know both of those influences. And it just, I know some people aren't going to agree with me about that, but that's okay. They don't have to. But we can raise children. Of course, I'm a single mother, and you can raise children without that male there. Or I have a friend who's a single father. He can raise those children, of course, without that female there. We're just saying that ideally, if you can find that mix of male and female, strong, balanced, well-adjusted individual, of course, it's just a benefit. It's a plus for those children, but I don't feel that you can't do it. It's a little harder, but, it's a plus. Yeah. Well, and it does give balance. It gives us balance, and we need all that when we're growing up, It helps us to see and it's two very different perspectives, and we need life is hard enough, go ahead and be able to see both perspectives. And, because I know my mom and dad had very different perspectives on things. Between male and female, and then they both had very different perspectives in a lot of different ways. And it was very beneficial to see both of those. And
right.
Even now, when I make decisions and do things, I clearly see how they both influenced me and in things that I do now and that kind of thing. It's interesting. It's because I was thinking about that after I was listening to all stuff, and I was like, I know which one has the bigger influence on me in what I do and don't do, and it's kind of interesting, you know.
Right. Okay, so I'm going to kind of I want to bring this back around. So, how do those children work within an open relationship where it's not the typical, textbook relationship?
Actually, somebody that I interviewed did research, and she's been doing the research long enough that she interviewed the children when they were very young, and they're now in like their early 20s, and she has gone back and interviewed them again. And I'm trying to line up a time. The first of the year, I'm hoping to have her on the show to interview her again about the books that she's written. But the ones I've talked to, and from what I hear from her, it's given the kids an interesting and more expanded and dynamic worldview. And the ones that I know personally, getting very positive feedback.
So does it create those children to be more promiscuous?
No.
So those children,
Nope.
when you say that, those children are choosing one partner and sticking with one partner?
Some are, some aren't.
Okay.
Yeah, it just seems like with the human element, you could just go a million directions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, it's just like any kid.
It's just I was just curious, just because kids obviously they're learning, right, and they don't have they don't understand how to create balance. That's what they're learning. So when they're introduced to this,
yeah. How many kids do you know that are seeing one person?
Well, sexually?
Well, in any way.
Well, I would hope, obviously the children aren't sexually active when they're younger, obviously.
I would hope so too. But I would hope so too, but that's not feasible for far too many of them. But
right.
I have a lot of feelings about teen sex, but it's not the reality, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, I think that it's, sex is not just sex. It just brings a lot of bonding with it, Sex is that thing that does bond people together. It is that unique thing that you can't go get that. Sex, it's unique. You can't get the same thing from somebody else. It's only original from that one person. And so I just think it's interesting because sex also, since it does bond you physically and emotionally, that could be a bit troublesome for children. I'm just going to talk at the age of 16. I don't know why 16, whatever. As they become sexually active, right, to have partners, several partners, I just think that could become very confusing in itself because of the act of what sex is.
Well, it depends on how exposed the kids are to it, too.
Exposed as in?
Well, whether the kids know about it, whether it's happening in the home, that sort of thing.
So,
you're assuming that they're going to be exposed to it. They may or may not.
Right, and are you saying that, what are your thoughts on that? Those children, how early and should they know that their parents have other partners? And when do you think that should happen, and does that confuse those children?
That depends on the children. Yeah, that totally depends on the children and the family dynamic. Some can handle it when they're 16. At 16, if they're in that kind of family, I would think they should be able to handle it. But there again, it depends on the family.
I personally think that, you wouldn't divulge what you and your wife do in the bedroom to the kids.
Right.
Anyway,
right.
So I certainly wouldn't divulge anything outside of our bedroom. What they do in their spare time, I think, is their business. I don't think the kids really want to know what's going on, let alone
how many kids want to know about their parents' sex life? Right.
Right. You want to poke your ears out. You just want, how did I get here? Well, the stork brought me. Let's leave it at that. You definitely don't want to hear about any, extracurricular partners for sure.
Well, and younger than that, they really don't want to know. So, you know. I mean, otherwise, if you're even around the house, you're a friend of mom or dad's, So,
right.
Great point, Ray.
It's like when they talk about pushing homosexuality to 6-year-olds. It's like, why would you be pushing sexuality at all to a 6-year-old?
Yeah, I really don't understand that at all, but
just in general, you would think that your children, the last thing they want to hear is the bed creaking at night.
Oh,
yeah.
It's almost better if they're out at a hotel with their significant others, but they're not in the house.
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't understand
why. We obviously, this is what's great about a show like this, because we have a lot of different views, a lot of opposing views, and it's a sample size of America and the world right now.
True. Well, and the problem is America's not willing to talk about it. They just want to argue and say you're wrong and I'm right, and sit down and shut up. So.
Well, yeah,
but
that's what digital media did. Is it emboldened people to just become really mean?
Yeah, I know. They're like, my side's right and you're wrong, and that's about it. It's like, no. I know. I was explaining to somebody one day that if you actually respect the other person's opinion, you get further. And their reply was, but they're wrong. Why should I respect them? I'm like, okay, but they think you're wrong. So.
It always takes me aback when I'll see somebody on YouTube in the comment section or Twitter or Facebook. Well, they go, you know what? You're right. I apologize. I was wrong about that. And you go, whoa.
Is that a typo?
Yeah, really. What is that? Somebody taking accountability for themselves and actually peacefully and amicably saying somebody else was right about something?
I know. Well, I'll do that even if it's something just really small. I'll say I'm wrong. Just for the novelty of it, because it floors people. And they're like, whoa, what?
Right.
But, yeah, because it's so rare that somebody says that, So even if it's something teeny tiny, I'll say, oh no, wait a minute, I was wrong. But
it's so
I mean, if
you can read it as sarcasm.
Yeah, no. Okay, there's that. No, if I say it, I mean it. But I'm taking accountability. So, oh, that's so bad. But okay, so how many people have we ticked off so far today? So what's the next one? Well, I'm ticking off. How many people have we ticked off so far tonight?
Exactly.
I don't know. It's just too many people are unwilling to talk and have a discussion and just have a honest discussion. And it's like, but I'm going to make somebody mad. Well, so but okay, when we were kids, and like I said, we're all basically the same age, I think. Are we right? You know how we all are. I think I'm the oldest one here, but whatever.
Yeah, not by much.
Yeah, okay. But I mean, we used to make each other mad, but it was okay. We'd make each other mad, but then by like an hour or so, nobody cared anymore.
Exactly.
Now you say something, and somebody else assumes what you meant, which wasn't what you meant anyway, and they're mad like forever, and they block you on Facebook, and you only find out because you never see an update from them ever again,
Right.
What in the world? It's bizarre. I don't understand.
They'll show up in your recommended friend request, and you're like, oh, I guess we're not friends.
No. Or Ray will do a live, and he'll, acknowledge somebody. I'm like, I don't see him.
Yeah, they'll block them.
Oh, they must have unfriended me again. So
beautiful.
I don't know. I'm not playing that game. I don't have time for the friend, unfriend, whatever.
Yeah.
So, too many other things to do in life.
My friends and I used to actually fist fight at 12 years old on our bikes, and an hour later we were hanging out and we were best friends again.
Well, yeah, back in the day, before Facebook, you had to do it that way. I don't know. It's strange. It is just strange. So what have y'all got coming up on Ray and Syd? Do y'all want to give us any teasers?
Well,
I bet y'all know what's coming up in the next 2 months of shows. I just bet you.
Well, we've opened it up to the listeners and the readers and the viewers, and they've come up with some really robust topics, and it's really cool to get that kind of challenge because Syd and I will sit across from each other, and we do all these in person. She flies into New York to do these. We're sitting face to face right now. And it really makes for a great dynamic because we'll talk about something, and especially if we're not agreeing on it, we'll look at each other and, it's really cool to get that interaction. And a lot of it we have a lot of common ground on, which is why this works. But, we can come at something north and south, meet in the middle, and it's always fun to see exactly where that point's going to drop where we meet, who compromised a little bit, and. But as far as topics, people have been asking. The open relationship thing was a reader query.
Right.
We have people asking about motivation. It could be about their marriage, money.
Yeah.
It's run the gamut, and we're going to tackle all of it.
Awesome. I've got one coming up that you do interior design, right, Syd?
Yeah.
Well, I've got a woman coming up in a few weeks, and she actually owns 2 different businesses. One is Dating with Style, which I like, and The Wandering Parisian. I love that.
Okay.
And she helps people she's a dating coach, but she also helps you to learn how to dress also. So dressing for a date, or just kind of updating your wardrobe so that you look better overall. So she actually went to Paris with her husband on a business trip, and she realized how the people in Paris seemed to look really good, and they made it seem so easy. They didn't go through all this huge hoopla to look good.
Right.
And so she came back here and she says, why do we work so hard to look good? That's ridiculous. So, and she ended up getting divorced shortly after that. I said, but you had a really good trip and inspired one before, so that's good.
That's good.
Yeah, really. So the trip paid off. But really, really cool show. So that's coming up.
All right. That's exciting.
Yeah. Okay. I thought you might enjoy that. And I've got my client Susan. We're actually getting together next week, and we're working on her book. We may be wrapping it up. And Paul, who has been on quite a few times, and we're going to be talking in depth about her surrogate partner training, because he just went through that. So we get to talk to somebody that's been through the training, and so I'm looking forward to that. Looking forward to that a lot. Mm-hmm. So we're doing that very soon. So
that's exciting.
I've got several music shows coming up over the holidays, and I've got one called the Critter Code, identifying which critter your partner is the most like. So, and that help you to know how to identify
spirit animal.
with your partner. Yeah, very much like that. So, and we've got at least one more spirit animal show coming up this year. So, interesting stuff coming up between now and the end of the year.
Exciting.
So, good stuff coming up. So, tell people how they can find out more about Ray and Syd, the show.
You can go right to the source, daretobebettershow.com.
Okay.
All the shows are uploaded there. We have the video up there. You can catch us, of course, at newvisionsradio.com. In the old Ray Powers Hour time slot, we're the Power Twins, you and I, on Thursday night, and that'll continue.
There you go.
8 and 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern. YouTube is Ray and Syd Show. That's the channel. You should definitely subscribe there and like the shows. And, Google us. We're all over the place. We're on most podcast platforms now. We're catching you, Nikki. You had a big head start, but,
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah. You're not catching me yet.
You'll be a bit, but, that's the goal. We have our goals, and they're lofty ones. We want to get to where you are.
Speaking of catching, this is number 374, Ray.
Wow.
just letting you know.
This show's got a way to go.
I'll be at 384 by the end of the year, just letting you know.
Well, none of us are catching Barry, so.
Yeah. Well, he does half-hour shows, and come on, he's retired. That helps. Yeah,
He can cut them in half, and he'd still be at 500.
Yeah, that's all right. But we're not competitive, Syd. Not at all.
No, you're not competitive at all.
No. He's picking on me again.
Well, thank you so much, Nikki. It just was a pleasure being here. We appreciate you inviting us.
Well, I said, they're neighbors. I got to have the new neighbors in. Ray's an established neighbor, but you're a new neighbor. So.
Oh, well, thank
but like
you.
I said, several music shows coming up over Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. So you never know. I've got some interesting ideas worked out for those. So you gotta stick around and see. And I'm having Susan Martin back. We got a hot show planned for the week before Thanksgiving. And Sarah and I always have a hot show planned when she comes in. So this is going to be our hottest one yet. Definitely adult content that week. So
put the kiddies to bed.
Definitely going to put the kiddies to bed before this show starts. Yes. That would be a very good idea with it. So, yeah, she's actually been in the States visiting. So she's heading back to Lithuania, and when she gets back, we're getting the show all ready for you. So good stuff coming up. So thank you guys for being here. Thank y'all. And listeners, we'll be with you next time on Ready for Love Radio.